If you feel like your attention span is getting worse, it's not just you, it's your content diet. Short form content could be rewiring how our brains work. Whether we're scrolling, constantly being pinged on our phone or various devices, there's a lot going on. Now, it's not all bad news, and in this video, I want to share with you what's going on, how it's affecting you, and what you can do about it. I'm Adam with the Productivity Academy, and like I said, I want to talk about short form content, and right off the bat, I'm going to tell you that this video is not going to be short and quick, and it's not going to have a bunch of fast cuts and things to keep you hooked. If that's what you're looking for, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. That said, this isn't going to be a crazy long video, but I think there's some really important parts we want to look at on this topic. And again, to look at how we can help ourselves. I know for myself, this is something I face. I'm interested in long form content, in both creating it and consuming it. And I've noticed over the years that my ability to focus has kind of gone down. And there's times where I find myself sucked into these activities, whether it's on my phone, the TV, but I find myself thinking, oh, I wish I could focus a little bit better. And that kind of freaks me out. So I'd been looking into this in the background, came across some interesting topics, I thought, and some ways we can work on this and what it all means. So I want to share that with you. Two things on this that I'm going to share as some reference materials, and there is much more that you can dive into if you're into this, but a book called The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, I believe it was published in 2010. And research from Marianne Wolf. So, the really key points here is that constant short form material is going to train your brain to skim and not to be thinking deeply and connecting thoughts and ideas. And that in and of itself isn't a horrible thing. Just the really important part to take away from this is that it's training your brain. What you do and how you do it is a training method, and you're going to be rewiring things to optimize for what you do. And, the reduced ability to sustain your attention could be really harmful depending on what you want to do. If you want to sit down and read books, you need to solve deep problems, you need to spend time reflecting, you're going to be making this much more difficult on yourself. Right. So this isn't a judgment call of TikTok's bad or, X, Y, and Z are bad, but reading long books is okay. For me, it's more about, no, I want to spend time doing this. I want the benefits that come through this. And I think there are some definite downsides. And I think that only consuming short form content could be really harmful. But that's not to say that you can't have it as part of the media that you intake, that there isn't anything valuable there. There certainly is. So let's get into that and talk about some of the benefits of long form engagement. And first on that topic is improved comprehension and memory. So for example, when you're reading deeply and you're really engaging with material, you're not just getting a quick hit of something, you have time for that to transfer into longer term memory. There's a lot of great work on this. I've had other videos, which I will link to, that talks about this, things by people like Barbara Oakley and how to learn like a pro or learning how to learn. And, there's just a ton of proven research about this and how we want to understand what we're doing and how we're doing it. And the next part flows into that, and critical thinking and empathy actually is something that has been shown to come from this, that these longer form, whether it's a narrative, a story, whatever it is, that it helps us better to understand ideas as well as people. So how is it that empathy could be lowered? One of these, it gets harder for you to understand other perspectives if it's just a quick hit of soundbite, right? You're not engaging with the author. You're not really picking up on context, more meaning and emotion in what you're reading, seeing, hearing. And all of that can lead to a harder time to understand and empathize with a person. And again, this isn't just the idea of you need to empathize with someone who thinks differently or is having a hard time. It's just the whole context going around it, where if you're only dealing with things like sound bites and quick hits, that you're losing a lot of context and time for your brain to take in all of these connective ideas and things that happen that help you learn and take in all of this information, that you need these extra, I would think of a phrase, could be like extra sensory types of things, but maybe it's just context around it. And another idea that I can personally attest to, and I think that this probably isn't too surprising to anybody, is personal fulfillment, or flow, and how you feel. I think that when we sit down with a good book, not a bad book, or you're deeply engaged in something, that you feel satisfied, there's contentment that comes from that, and that a lot of our time spent on social media and really short form, quick hit type things can leave you feeling a little empty. A lot of times they're made with a very clear bias or opinion, right? And if maybe it's political, maybe it's just meant to be inflammatory in a different sense. And a lot of this stuff is going to leave you feeling worse than when you started. And so maybe you're going on Instagram to look at your friends' pictures, but you end up seeing a bunch of other stuff that, you weren't intending to, or the ads. And after a while you realize, I'm not enjoying this, and I'm not getting out of it what I wanted, what I went into. And you can look at that and say, if you multiply that over, many times a day over years, then we kind of see what's going on there and say, oh, right, maybe I need to set up some rules for myself so that I could spend more time doing the things that bring me contentment and satisfaction. So I think that, we touched on this, but a lot of short form content is designed with attention grabbing, stimulation, and not educational. This is clearly not a broad sweeping generalization. I'm not saying that it is all that way. But when it becomes the default mode of intake, right, your brain adapts to whatever it's around, the environment it's in. So it's going to become more used to that mode and working in that mode. So it's not about stopping short form, but it's about, working on your ability to go deep. If you want to be able to sit down for 3 hours and really deeply work, that's going to be really hard if you spend 90% of your time not doing that, or actually doing the opposite, right? Because it's not just, oh, I need to get better about working deep. It's that you've been doing something completely different and now you're trying to change. So again, building these habits is about, building that ability, flexing that muscle, and building it over time. So real quick, what are some upsides about, let's just say, digital reading? I know people, I think people are kind of split on this, where, hey, should I read with a physical book or digital? Is it okay? How should I journal? Things like that. There's definite upsides. This can help you more with like associative. You're thinking, making connections, right? We want to take in this different material, and digital reading has made that more accessible than ever, whether it's literally just taking that information in using a tool like Readwise Reader, saving articles, reading cross-domain information, tagging it, making it literally more accessible by maybe changing the font size, having things audio instead of text, whatever that is. But there's so much more that it really helps you to come across and potentially make these connections and work on material, like I said, cross-domain. So with the short good news out of the way, let's move on to some better things you can do to help rebuild your focus. I'm going to share some of the things that I have done that I found to be effective over time. And I think that, like anything that's worth doing, it's worth investing the time up front. And a lot of this is going to be personal. If this doesn't apply to you, just take the idea and think, how could I change this to fit me? Or if I'm not a reader, but I'm an audiobook listener more, how could I make this work? And a lot of this you can change and really help yourself out with. So for example, some personal habits of mine, I believe if I have it still, I'll link it, the phone basket. We got a phone basket that we put at the bottom of the stairs in the entrance to our room. And I had to put up a sign because I wasn't using it. And I think Other people might think it's goofy, but I think it works for me, which is the most important part. And I have a sign that says after 9 p.m., put your phone here because I just wasn't doing it. And I've really found that to be helpful. And what I end up doing instead is using my Kindle. And before, a lot of times I would have my Kindle and my phone. And, I'd be like, oh, well, I want to look something up from the book I'm reading, but then I would find myself checking email or doing something else. Like half the time I wasn't doing that, or I'd just end up scrolling on my phone. And I was like, okay, this has got to stop. So there's many reasons, right, to not use your phone in the evening. But that for me was just, hey, that's time I want to read. I want to be more relaxed. I don't want to find out of, an email that could have waited until the morning, but now it's going to be in my head. And so I think that that's been really helpful. And then in the morning when I wake up, it's not right next to me. If I want to go get it, great, I can. But also my Kindle is there. I could read a little bit in the morning. And then speaking of morning reading, that is a routine that I have built. So in the morning, I will look and definitely use my phone. But I do my Readwise, the spaced repetition. That's another great one for learning, going back over the material that you've read before, looking at your highlights, kind of learning that stuff, but it's still stimulating to the brain. Doing some reading of any sort. I don't generally set a timer. I just make sure that I read, whether it's my Kindle, whatever books I'm reading, physical books, maybe Reader. I go through some of the recent articles I've saved and go through that. Now, the other thing that I've worked on, and this has taken me quite a while, and I would like to expand it even more, but was slowly blocking out my morning schedule so that I did not have calls scheduled, I did not have meetings scheduled, and I still do not have this of all 5 days, but I'm kind of building that out as I go and trying to get to 90 to 120 minutes of blocked out time where I work on my priorities first. And generally it's on the more creative side, whether it's an output of some sort. I'm not doing admin work. I'm not, filling out paperwork. I'm doing things like writing. I'm recording a video. I'm outlining things. I'm writing a newsletter, whatever it is that's important that week, that I put it in that time period and I get it done. And it's generally things that are on my personal list. And that could be with a business partner, it could be something else, but I just make sure that I'm doing that. And that gives me that time to really go deep and do what I need to do. And it was kind of scary and a little shocking how hard that was at first. I think I started with 45 minutes or maybe an hour, and to really have that time and then to be like, okay, it's up to me to make this work. So doing things like taking my phone, putting it out of literal reach or in a different room, moving things out so I don't have distractions around me, closing a door if I need to do that, putting on headphones, just doing things so that, the environment is conducive. And so I can use that time. And if needed, setting an alarm. If you've got calls or you've got work you need to get done, like everyone else, you've got that admin work that has to be done, you've got that meeting you've got to have, then yeah, set an alarm for the end of your deep work period. And, if you want to break it into Pomodoro sprints of 25 minutes, 45 minutes, again, just testing all of this stuff to find out what works well for you. Okay, so to summarize a little bit, if you've skipped towards the end or if you're still with me, I think that rebuilding this ability to go deep and to really focus is going to become somewhat of a superpower, or maybe it already is. And moving forward into the future, I think that being able to do this is going to be incredible and pay off. Plus, I think it honestly leads to better contentment. So, externally, I'm not, looking for people to praise me about, wow, you can really concentrate for an hour. Like, no, I just want to be able to read a book and, have the ability to sit down and really focus and work on complex things and put out work that I'm proud of and things that I enjoy. So at the same time, I'm not going to never look at short form content. I think that there's a lot of great stuff. I saw a really good painting instructional video. Those YouTube short is 45 seconds, but that's all they needed to share this one technique. And I found that really helpful. But what I don't want to do is be looking at, short form video content that is trying to grab my attention at, 10 o'clock at night. That's not for me. That's not what I want to be doing. And that's not what I want to be doing during my most productive hours in the morning. I want to be working on, blocking out that time so that I can use those most productive hours to do the things that are the most important to me so that I get the results I want. And hopefully using some of this information, you can do the same for yourself. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, add-ons to this, please leave it below and I will get back to you.